Hey friends, welcome back. I've got my Minecraft world up and running. Smooth terrain, soft lighting, and just enough cozy atmosphere to balance out what you're about to hear. Before we begin, I want to say thank you. In the last 2 weeks, we've grown to an additional 90 subscribers, and it happened so fast. So again, thank you to everyone who has been coming back to the channel to listen to these Reddit stories. You guys are really fulfilling my heart. Tonight's stories are as chaotic as ever, and the first one, it's personal, brutal, and oddly satisfying. The audacity is breathtaking. This woman went out of her way to manipulate, sabotage, and control every inch of her partner's life, until he finally snapped and flipped her world upside down. There's something deeply satisfying about watching someone try to play puppet master, only to end up tangled in their own strings. And the best part, she never saw it coming. From secret files to legal fallout, this one spirals fast. And trust me, it doesn't stop there. Let's get into the moment where everything starts to unravel. We'd been dating for about 2 years when the weird stuff started. At first, it was little things: a missed email from a potential employer, a recruiter who ghosted me after seeming excited, job interviews that felt promising and then just vanished. I chalked it up to bad luck. The job market was tough, and I was still rebuilding after a career pivot. But somewhere in the back of my head, something didn't sit right. And it wasn't just the rejection, it was how things were falling apart. The timing, the patterns. My girlfriend Hannah was supportive, almost too supportive. She'd say stuff like, maybe it's just not the right time, or you don't want to work for a company that ghosts you anyway. And I appreciated it. I thought, wow, she really gets it. But then she started offering to help more. She'd offer to look over my resume, tell me which jobs were scams, even help me clean up my digital presence. At first, it felt like love, like partnership, like the kind of thing you dream about. It wasn't. One day, I was using her laptop to email myself a file, and I noticed a folder on her desktop that looked out of place, titled Reputation Management. Innocent sounding, right? Like something you'd find in a marketing firm. Except Hannah didn't work in marketing. She worked in HR. I opened the folder. Inside were spreadsheets, multiple ones, with names like job contacts, LinkedIn comments, and this one made my stomach drop: alt accounts. I opened one file and saw a list of companies I'd applied to, with dates, contact names, and notes. Next to some of the entries were phrases like called and expressed concern, or emailed anonymously, used Gmail burner. I just sat there, reading in disbelief. The further I scrolled, the worse it got. There were full paragraphs where she detailed fake reviews she'd posted, phone calls she'd made pretending to be dissatisfied customers, and even logs of interactions she'd had under fake names. One section was literally titled Damage Control Schedule. She was actively sabotaging my life. Every job interview that ghosted me, probably her. Every strange LinkedIn comment, definitely her. There was even a list of my login credentials for old email accounts, ones I hadn't used in years. Passwords she must have taken from my phone when we were together. I felt sick, so I confronted her, and she didn't even try to deny it. She cried, but it wasn't the kind of crying that comes from guilt. It was frustration. She kept saying things like, I was just scared you'd leave me, and I only did it because I love you. And then she said it. I just wanted to keep you dependent. Her voice cracked like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Like I was the bad guy for being mad about it. I couldn't even respond. I just walked out. Moved in with a friend that night and blocked her number the next morning. But I wasn't done. I sent the file, all of it, to her job. HR, I didn't even have to write an explanation. The documents spoke for themselves. The fake accounts, the call logs, the impersonations, the employer data, all tied back to her. Turns out, reputation management doesn't play well when you work in HR. She was fired within the week, and not quietly. The company launched an internal investigation, and I heard through mutuals that she'd burned through whatever good standing she had. She tried to play the victim, saying I'd hacked her computer, but when they found the files under her own user account with access logs tying back to her IP, yeah, good luck with that defense. And just when I thought that was it, she escalated again. She tried to sue me for defamation, claimed I'd falsified the documents and damaged her professional reputation. Her lawyer even tried to argue that the material violated her privacy, which was funny considering she'd had zero concern for mine. But here's the kicker. I still had the original metadata from the files, plus screenshots of her logged into the account she used, her timestamps, her IP addresses. It was airtight. Her case got thrown out so fast I don't think the judge even blinked. She'd officially burned every bridge, both personally and professionally, and still, she didn't stop trying to control the narrative. I started getting weird messages from strangers online, anonymous accounts accusing me of being abusive, saying I ruined an innocent woman's life. But they all had the same tone, same writing quirks. It was her, again. Still trying to twist reality. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're as addicted to Reddit drama as I am. Make sure to subscribe because the rabbit hole only gets deeper. So, with her job gone and her reputation tanking, she thought things couldn't get worse until the police showed up. Turns out impersonating clients and employers, accessing someone's accounts without permission, and falsifying communication records, those aren't just morally bankrupt, they're actually crimes. Identity fraud, wire fraud, defamation, unauthorized access of digital property. Her laptop was basically a confession booth with timestamps. I wasn't even the one who called the cops. Her former employer did. Apparently, her antics had extended beyond just me. She'd used company resources to make some of the calls. One of the fake emails had even bounced back to a company server. When they dug deeper, it got messier. Turns out she had a pattern. Not just with me. There were at least 2 former colleagues she'd sabotaged in similar ways. Less intense, but still manipulative. HR Nightmare doesn't even begin to cover it. I was just the one who finally connected the dots. She pled out to avoid trial, but it didn't save her record, or her future career. She'll never work in HR again. Any job that does a background check, which, let's be honest, is every job now, will see exactly what she did. And her LinkedIn? Let's just say it hasn't been updated in a long time. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents. No job, no car, completely off social media. And yeah, part of me still feels a twinge of sadness, because I genuinely loved her. I just didn't realize how deep the control ran until I was already trapped in it. You know, they always say love can make people do crazy things, but I don't think this was love. This was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing control. Fear of not being needed. She turned that fear into a campaign of sabotage and handed me all the evidence in a neatly labeled spreadsheet. Honestly, you almost have to admire the commitment. Like, she really put in the work to ruin my life. She just didn't plan for what would happen if I ever caught on. But if you thought that was wild, wait until you hear how a mother-in-law destroyed her own son's wedding. We had 6 months of wedding planning behind us and exactly 1 week to go when things started falling apart. I'm talking catastrophic failures. The caterer ghosted us, the florist cancelled last minute, and the venue told us we'd been double booked and would need to reschedule or downsize. At first, we thought it was just bad luck. A series of unfortunate events, nothing personal, but there were too many coincidences happening all at once, and all of them somehow pointed back to me. My fiancée, Sam, was trying to keep it together, but I could see it in her eyes. The stress, the disappointment, the quiet suspicion that maybe I hadn't handled things like I said I did, that maybe I forgot to confirm the caterer, or didn't double-check the booking. I kept saying I'd confirmed everything, because I had. Every detail. I was organized. I'd literally made spreadsheets, but then came the texts, screenshots she showed me, from my number, sent to her the night before the florist cancelled. Stuff like, "Babe, I think we should scale back. I don't think we need flowers." Another one said, "Forget the caterer, I'll cook for everyone." Trust me, it didn't even sound like me, but it was my number. That's when I started spiraling. Not only was everything falling apart, now Sam thought I was lying. Worse, she thought I was trying to ruin our wedding. The day of, we tried to salvage what we could. Friends and family helped us decorate a local park last minute. We picked up takeout trays to serve guests. It wasn't what we'd planned, but we figured, hey, the love matters more than the details, right? Except she didn't show up. She left me a voicemail crying. Said she felt like the universe was screaming at her to stop. That everything had gone wrong, and she couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't care. That if I did, how could I have let all this happen? I don't blame her, honestly. I looked like the world's most negligent fiancé. No flowers, no venue, no food, and text messages from me telling her it was all intentional. I'd have doubted me too. So yeah, the wedding was ruined. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because for a solid month after that, I blamed myself. I kept thinking, did I forget something? Did I drop the ball without realizing? Was I so overwhelmed that I screwed everything up and blocked it out? I went down every rabbit hole trying to figure it out. Sam stopped answering my texts. Her friends unfollowed me. It was like I'd been blacklisted overnight. Then came Christmas. I was still invited to the family party, but mostly out of pity, I think. Everyone was polite, weirdly polite, smiles that didn't reach their eyes, like they were talking about me more than to me. And I kept thinking, this is my life now. The guy who let his wedding implode, until my cousin pulled me aside. She said, "Hey, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I can't keep it to myself anymore." "Your mum?" She bragged to my mom about saving you from a wedding disaster. I stared at her. Like, what? She went on. Said my mom had mentioned casually that she didn't trust Sam, that she'd always suspected Sam was just marrying me for stability, and that she'd made a few adjustments to make sure I had a chance to see things clearly before it was too late adjustments. I went cold. I knew my mom wasn't Sam's biggest fan, but I never imagined that. She always smiled to her face, always offered to help, always asked questions like, "Are you sure you want to do this so soon?" But I thought that was just mom being mom. Protective, a little controlling, sure. But sabotage? I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think my cousin misunderstood, until I remembered something. My mom had asked me for copies of the vendor info, weeks before the wedding. She said she wanted to make backup calls in case we needed help last minute. I'd sent her everything: contact info, calendar dates, down payments, even screenshots of confirmations. She had all of it, every piece she needed to undo what we'd built. This is where patience finally snapped. I didn't say anything that night. I just went home and pulled up the footage from the security cam in my home office. I'd set it up months ago when our place got broken into. I rarely checked it, but it recorded everything, including one very specific afternoon, the day those texts were sent to Sam. And there she was, my mother, sitting at my desk, holding my phone, typing. She'd waited until I was in the shower. I saw myself walk down the hall in a towel on the playback, completely unaware. The timestamp matched the texts exactly. She'd sent them. She spoofed my number using a forwarding app she'd downloaded before. I checked my App Store history. She'd installed it when she borrowed my phone to look up a recipe. I just stared at the screen. There it was, concrete evidence. And it still didn't feel real. Imagine being this dedicated to wrecking your own child's wedding. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't confront her privately. I waited. 2 days later, Christmas dinner, whole family gathered, fire crackling, matching pajamas. The usual passive-aggressive cheer. And right before dessert, I connected my laptop to the TV. "I need everyone to watch something," I said. My mum went pale. I hit play. There she was, typing away, rewinding, slow motion. The whole room was dead silent except for the sound of her fingers tapping my phone. My aunt dropped her fork. My cousin was trying not to laugh. My mum, stone-faced. I said, "So, yeah, that's who cancelled the catering. That's who texted Sam. That's who ruined everything." No one moved. No one defended her. My dad looked furious. My grandma straight up said, "Are you serious, Barbara?" That was the last Christmas we spent together. I sent the footage to Sam. No words, just the video. She didn't respond for 2 weeks, and when she did, it was just, I don't even know what to say. We met up in January. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't some fairy tale reunion. But it was honest. We talked about everything. About how betrayed she felt. About how scared she was to trust again. About how I'd been blindsided just as much as she had. We're still figuring things out. Slowly, carefully. My mum, though, she's officially in exile. No calls, no holidays, no shared passwords. She handed over the rope and tied the knot herself. Speaking of family sabotage, here's how one dad nearly wrecked his own daughter's life. Over a swimming pool. When I was 12, my mum decided we needed a pool. Not for me. Not really. She wanted it so she could host elevated summer parties. Her words, not mine. You know, the kind where she could invite her coworkers over and act like we lived in a resort instead of a mid-range suburb, with cracked sidewalks and a mismatched fence. She framed it like it was some big gift to the whole family, especially me. "You'll love this when your friends come over," she said. And sure, at 12, I did love it for a while. Fast forward 6 years. I'm 18, I've got a part-time job, a beat-up but functional car my dad helped me buy, and I'm doing what most high school seniors do, trying to survive until graduation without imploding. Then one afternoon, completely out of nowhere, my mom sits me down and says, "Hey, I think it's time we talk about your share of the pool." I thought she was joking, like, had to be. She said it so casually, like asking someone to grab milk on the way home. I laughed. She didn't. She pulls out a folder, a literal folder. Inside, a breakdown of costs for the pool installation from 6 years ago. Materials, labor, maintenance, permits. It totaled over $20,000. And she had the nerve to say, "You've had 6 years to enjoy it. I think it's fair you pay half-half, as in $10,000. At this point, I'm sitting there thinking, what is happening right now? Is this a prank? Did I stumble into some bizarre YouTube social experiment? But no, she was dead serious. She called it a shared family asset and said that since I was now an adult, it was time to contribute financially. I told her I didn't have that kind of money, obviously. I was 18, working part-time at a smoothie bar. My savings were for college and gas. She shrugged and said, "Well, maybe it's time to prioritize family responsibilities over luxury." Luxury. She called not drowning in debt at 18 a luxury. When I didn't magically come up with $10,000, she escalated. First, she took my car keys, said I could earn them back with consistent payments. Then she hinted that she could get creative with my credit if I didn't start paying. I didn't even have credit yet, but that didn't stop her from threatening to co-sign me into debt and ruin it before it started. And here's where it gets absurd. My dad, her ex, found out. He and my mum divorced when I was 15. It wasn't friendly, but they kept things mostly civil when it came to me. So I called him in a panic, explained the pool debt nonsense, and he goes silent. Like long, heavy silence. Then he says, "Tell her to send me the invoice." Turns out he had paid for half of that pool. Quietly. Out of guilt, probably, because he left during that whole chaotic year. But the point is, he already did what she was asking me to do. So when she claimed I needed to repay the family's investment, she really just meant her half. Because apparently installing a pool was her retirement plan, and I was the backup 401k. My dad shows up 2 days later with legal paperwork, because of course he did, and tells her that if she tries to mess with my credit or extort me for something he already covered, she's going to be in real legal trouble. She backs down on the threats, temporarily, but she still wouldn't give me my car keys, claimed it was emotional damages, that I disrespected her generosity by not being grateful for the pool in the first place. Oh, we're doing emotional ransom now. Cool. That's when I moved out. Packed a duffel bag and went to live with my aunt on my dad's side, someone who actually treats me like a person and not a walking Venmo account. She gave me the spare room, made me pancakes, and helped me breathe for the first time in weeks. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But the cherry on top, my mom tried to spin the whole thing on Facebook, posted some long, rambling status about raising strong children with a sense of responsibility, and the backlash good parents face when enforcing accountability. Oh yeah, she made herself the victim. The comment section was brutal. People were not having it. Friends, co-workers, even a few old high school classmates of hers, all dragging her. Someone even commented, "Imagine charging your kid for the pool you bought to show off to your boss." Peak clown behavior. She deleted the post, then reposted it again with comments turned off. And then she made a vague follow-up post about being betrayed by those closest to her and choosing peace. I guess peace means going full villain monologue and hoping nobody remembers the receipts. She hasn't apologized, not once. Not for the threats, the manipulation, the complete lack of empathy. She still texts sometimes, asking when I'll come home and have a grown-up conversation, as if grown-up conversations start with stealing a car and end with fake debt collection threats. It's almost funny how perfectly it backfired, because she didn't just lose the money she tried to squeeze out of me, she lost her relationship with me entirely. And she's still out here pretending she's the hero in a story where she tried to bankrupt a teenager over a backyard pool. Anyway, I've been living with my aunt for a few months now, got my own car again, built up some savings, applying to colleges, rebuilding, slowly. But it feels good knowing I'm not stuck in that house anymore. And it turns out the internet has my back. A friend of mine posted about what happened, anonymously of course, and it went viral on a subreddit. Thousands of comments calling out how insane it was. People offering advice. People offering lawyer referrals. One person even offered to crowdfund me a new pool. I didn't take it, but the support, that meant everything. They basically dug their own grave and tripped into it. Want something even pettier? Let me tell you about the roommate who revenge decorated his entire house, just to piss off a neighbor. I bought my house because it had charm, not just the house itself, but the neighborhood. Quiet, older trees, no nosy HOA, breathing down your neck every time your grass grew half an inch too long. It was peaceful, or it should have been. Until Linda moved in across the street. Linda had the exact personality you'd expect from someone who once told me, with a straight face, that she missed the good old days when everyone knew their place. I should have known what I was in for when she handed me a typed-up welcome letter that ended with, "Please consider this a friendly reminder to remove political signage within 48 hours of elections." It wasn't even an election year. At first, I tried to be civil. She complained that my trash cans were too close to the curb, that my garden hose was visible from the sidewalk. One time, she knocked on my door because a leaf from my tree had landed on her driveway. A single leaf. I shrugged it off. I wasn't trying to start a war, but she wasn't looking for peace either. Then the code violation started. First, it was my mailbox. Apparently, it leaned suspiciously. Then, it was my fence, 3 inches too tall on one side. Then, it was my lawn, which she reported for being overgrown, despite the fact I had just mowed it 2 days prior. I knew it was her. The city sends you copies of the complaints, and while they don't list names, the wording was unmistakable. Same phrases she used in person: degrades neighborhood appeal, suburban blight, property values at risk. And here's where it gets absurd. I repainted my mailbox, trimmed the fence, mowed again. But then she reported me for operating a business from home because I had a laptop on the front porch. I wish I was kidding. The final straw? She took a picture of my dog napping in the front yard and sent it to animal control with a note that said, "Unattended, possibly feral." My dog is 12, blind in one eye, and literally named Muffin. That was the day I decided, fine. You want a battle? Game on. So I painted my house, not just any color. I went full pastel explosion. Bright turquoise on one wall, coral on another, sunflower yellow trim. It looked like a candy store and a beach shack had a chaotic baby. My friend, who's a muralist, added giant sunflowers along the side and painted a gnome peeking out from behind the garage. And I wasn't done. I planted actual sunflowers in the front yard. Big ones, towering, everywhere. I added pink flamingos, a rainbow windspinner, and, my personal favorite, 25 lawn gnomes, each in a different outfit. One was dressed like Elvis. One had a tiny guitar. One held a tiny Linda Lives, Laughs, Loves sign. Oh, and I installed solar-powered lights to spotlight the gnomes at night. Tasteful, right? And just like clockwork, she lost her mind. She reported me again, multiple times. Said I'd turned my property into a carnival of chaos. Said the colors were a threat to community morale. When that didn't work, she accused me of installing unauthorized structures. The city inspector came out. I was ready. Turns out our neighborhood doesn't have an HOA, and the city's codes, pretty chill. No rules against color, no rules about lawn decor, as long as it's not obstructing traffic or utilities. The inspector walked around, chuckled at the gnomes, complimented the sunflowers, and left. And that's when everything unraveled. Linda tried to escalate. Again. She filed a civil complaint claiming I was intentionally disturbing the peace. She said the paint job gave her migraines, that the sunflowers were spreading allergens, and that the gnomes had caused emotional distress. My lawyer asked if she could prove which gnome caused the distress, or if they acted as a group. We did not settle. The judge took one look at the photos and said, "While unorthodox, nothing here appears to be in violation of city code." Then he looked at Linda and asked if perhaps the issue was more about personal preference than legal infraction. I swear I heard someone in the back snort laugh. Case dismissed. Linda stormed out. I went home, and that night I added 3 more gnomes to the yard, one holding a tiny "I love court" sign. You almost have to admire the audacity. She really thought she could turn the city into her personal HOA just because she didn't like my color palette. And instead, she gave me the best reason ever to fully commit to maximum petty. Now every holiday the gnomes dress up. Halloween, little vampire capes, Christmas, mini Santa hats, Valentine's Day, heart-shaped sunglasses and signs that say, Linda, be mine. Tourists stop by to take photos. I've got a little tip jar out front. People love the gnome house. I even got featured in a local paper under the headline, Neighborhood Eyesore or Art Installation. And I gotta say, that's the exact kind of ambiguity I live for. And you know what? I sleep great. But what happens when the revenge isn't petty? It's downright dangerous, like sending someone to jail over wedding flowers. Our wedding florist cancelled 5 days before the ceremony. No warning, no apology. Just a cold 3-sentence email saying she could no longer fulfill the contract due to unforeseen scheduling issues. No refund, and no flowers. I nearly threw my laptop across the room. We'd paid her almost $2,000, booked her 6 months in advance. She had glowing reviews, a cozy little storefront, a fancy-looking Instagram. All of it screamed reliable small business. Except she ghosted. And when I called her number, disconnected. My first reaction was panic, then rage, then this eerie, laser-focused calm that told me, no, we are not letting this go. I'd never sued anyone before, but it turns out small claims court isn't hard to file for. I gathered all the receipts, the contract, payment confirmation, screenshots of the emails. When I showed up for the hearing, she actually had the audacity to bring a printout of her Instagram page and say the flowers had been delivered, but maybe stolen. That's when everything unraveled, because I had video from the venue. Full surveillance coverage, no one delivered anything, no vans, no boxes, no vases, nothing even resembling a flower. Her defense crumbled instantly, but that wasn't even the worst part. While prepping for court, I'd done some digging. Just curiosity at first, looking through her Yelp, her reviews, I started noticing patterns, weirdly similar usernames, overly enthusiastic language, life-changing floral experiences, and brought tears to my eyes. Like, okay, chill. I cross-checked the usernames with review sites. Some of them were duplicated word for word across multiple platforms, for different businesses. Then I looked her up in the state business registry. Nothing. No license. No tax ID. No business entity filed under her name, her store name, or even her initials. At that point, I didn't care about the flowers anymore. I wanted to know who I'd given $2,000 to, and whether she'd done this before. Spoiler, she had. An old Reddit thread, yes, really, mentioned her name. Someone else had been ghosted weeks before their baby shower. Same excuse, unforeseen scheduling issues, no refund. Another post, someone claiming they'd booked her for prom corsages, only to have her block them 2 days before. Different city, same name. So I started compiling. I built a folder, names, dates, screenshots, comments. A timeline that spanned 5 years of shady cancellations, fake reviews, and what looked a whole lot like fraud. I also called the state licensing board to double check. She wasn't registered, not as a florist, not as a vendor, nothing. That's when I contacted the police. I wasn't expecting much, honestly. Maybe a report. Maybe they'd shrug it off and say civil issue. But to my surprise, the detective I spoke to, she listened. I sent the folder. She called me back 3 days later and said, "We're looking into her. You're not the first person to file something. She wasn't just running a shady flower shop. She was running an unregistered business while collecting deposits under multiple aliases. Some payments were made out to her name, others to different LLCs that didn't exist. Some of the Venmo accounts were tied to her teenage nephew. I had walked straight into a scam factory, disguised in soft pink peonies and Pinterest-worthy bouquets. And here's where it gets good. She showed up to court again, confident, smirking, dressed like she was about to host a garden brunch. The judge called us up, and just as I was preparing to lay out my case, 2 officers walked in and asked her to step outside. She froze. Everyone stared. The courtroom was dead silent except for the click of her shoes as she followed them out. I don't know what was said, but 10 minutes later, the bailiff announced that our case was postponed, pending criminal investigation. I found out later she'd been arrested for business fraud and tax evasion. There were 9 other cases connected to her, some dating back 7 years. She'd dodged formal charges before by settling out of court or refunding people just enough to keep them quiet. Not this time, because she'd picked the wrong bride to scam. I was mad, heartbroken, and armed with a Google Doc that could bring down a small country. And yeah, I still didn't have wedding flowers. But honestly, watching her get arrested mid-trial was almost as satisfying as walking down the aisle would have been with a $500 centerpiece. Almost. I ended up getting my money back, not from her, but through the victim compensation program. And the best part? The detective told me that without my folder, she probably wouldn't have been charged. I connected the dots, gave them the pattern, helped tie the timeline together. So, moral of the story, always trust your gut, always screenshot everything, and never mess with a bride 5 days before her wedding, especially if she knows how to use Excel. This feels like a deleted scene from a true crime documentary. Honestly, I half expected a Netflix deal by the end of it. From florists to fake friends. Here's what happened when I found out my best friend was dating my ex while living in my house. When my best friend Jake asked if he could crash at my place for a while, I didn't even hesitate. We'd been close since high school. Late night gaming sessions, dumb pranks, hungover breakfasts. The whole ride or die deal. He said his lease had ended and he needed a month, tops, to get back on his feet. I had the space. I had the couch. It wasn't a big ask. The only thing I told him was, just don't hook up in my apartment, please. It wasn't about being a prude. I just didn't want random people in my space, especially when I wasn't home. I figured that was a basic boundary. He nodded, said, of course, man. Total respect handshake. Bro hug. Done. Except it turns out total respect meant using my bedroom to hook up with my ex-girlfriend while I was at work. Let's rewind a bit. My breakup with Emily had been rough. We'd dated for over 2 years, talked about moving in, maybe more. It didn't end in screaming or betrayal. It ended in that quiet, gnawing way where one person checks out and the other's too tired to fight. She said she needed space to rediscover herself. I believed her. Jake knew all of that. He was there when I cried about it. He even helped me box up her stuff when she didn't come back for it. He told me she didn't deserve me. He literally said, "You're better off, man." Seriously, so imagine my face when I check my phone one night and see an alert from the motion-activated camera I'd set up in my bedroom. I know, a camera in the bedroom? Sketchy, right? But hear me out. I live in a ground floor unit near the woods. A raccoon had snuck in through the window 2 weeks earlier. It made a mess, triggered the smoke alarm, and traumatized my dog. So I set up a camera by the window. Motion sensor, nothing fancy. I honestly forgot it was even on. Until that notification. I tapped it, expecting to see maybe a squirrel, maybe wind moving the curtains. Instead, I see Jake and Emily in my bed. They weren't talking. I just sat there, completely still. Like my brain was trying to buffer what I was seeing in 240p, even though it was playing in HD. I rewatched it 3 times just to make sure. Same hoodie, same laugh, same voice. My best friend, my ex. In my bed. And here's where it gets absurd. Emily had never come to my place post-breakup. She'd even blocked me on Instagram a few months earlier. Jake had never once mentioned running into her, let alone dating her. And they weren't just hooking up. There was a weird comfort between them in the video. Like this wasn't the first time. The next morning, I waited, pretended everything was normal, made coffee, asked him how his job search was going. He shrugged, said, slow. Then I said, cool. Oh, by the way, how's Emily? His face didn't move, but his coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. I stared at him. He said, what do you mean? I said, you know what I mean. And then I played the video. Volume up, right on the kitchen counter. He didn't deny it, just muttered, man, I was gonna tell you. Oh, sure, eventually. Probably right after the wedding invite. He left that day, didn't pack, didn't apologize, just grabbed his phone and left. He texted me once saying it wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't reply, and that could have been the end of it. Quiet betrayal, clean break. But no, that's not how this story ends, because I was angry, and not just about the betrayal. I kept thinking about all the nights he'd stayed over, lying on my couch like he was broke and innocent, while he was sneaking my ex into my bed. How he'd eaten my food, used my Wi-Fi, laughed at my jokes, while dragging me through some soap opera I didn't sign up for. So I posted the footage. No names, no faces, just enough context. Titled it, When Your Best Friend Turns Out to Be Your Ex's Rebound, in your own bed. I blurred their faces, distorted the audio, and uploaded it to a private Reddit account. People ate it up. Comment after comment. That's vile. The betrayal is unreal. Send him a Venmo request for emotional damages. But that wasn't even the worst part, because someone recognized Emily's tattoo. Tiny crescent moon on her shoulder. She'd posted a photo of it once on her story, one of those healing and growth captions. The comment thread exploded. Next thing I know, mutual friends are messaging me. Screenshots are circulating. Jake's tagged in some call-out post from a burner account. Emily's DMs are full of, "Is this you?" messages. They both went dark on social media. Deleted everything. I didn't intend to go nuclear, but I also didn't stop it. They made a mess in my house. All I did was show people the mess. You almost have to admire the audacity. They really thought they'd never get caught. Or worse, that if they did, I'd just roll over and let it happen. Nope. And I don't regret it. Because as much as it hurt, it was also clarifying. I saw who they really were. Not just cheaters, but liars with zero remorse. Now, my bed's mine again. My friends are real ones. And Jake? He can go rediscover himself on someone else's couch. Betrayal is one thing, but stealing someone's job? That's another level. Here's how a jealous coworker tried to ruin everything and got fired instead. At first, I thought I was paranoid. I'd been working on this mobile app for weeks, a clean, elegant scheduling tool that was supposed to streamline team management. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Every line of code, every interface tweak, every feature request I preemptively built in, all mine. And yet, somehow, my coworker Devin kept, coincidentally, pitching eerily similar features to our manager before I did. I'd mention a module in stand-up, and suddenly, 2 days later, Devin would be demoing his version of that exact module. He always had some excuse. "Oh, I was just exploring that too, totally separate idea." Or, it's not like it's proprietary. We're all collaborating, right? Except we weren't collaborating. We were working independently on parallel features. And I never saw his code until he showed it off to the team. Still, I didn't want to accuse him without proof. The tech world is messy enough, and calling someone out for theft without receipts? That's career suicide. So I waited. I started leaving subtle breadcrumbs, snippets of unfinished code, vague commit messages, little traps in our shared repo to see if he'd bite. He did. Devin wasn't just copying me. He was actively monitoring my branches and copy-pasting pieces into his own work. He'd tweak variable names, change a few function orders, but the logic? Identical. So I built a trap. It was subtle. In the back end of the app, I wrote a tiny failsafe, a soft lock that triggered a crash under a very specific condition. The app would run perfectly in a test environment. Even the staging server wouldn't notice anything wrong. But once it hit production, boom, instant failure. The screen would freeze, the logs would flood with useless error messages, and the whole thing would shut down. Unless, and this was key, unless the hidden override was manually toggled. I never documented the override, never mentioned it, never pushed it to the main branch. I just waited. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Devin asked for a casual sync with our VP to showcase his independent prototype. He called it Project Alpha, which, okay. He even sent out a meeting invite with me, CC'd, not invited. Cute. But here's where it gets absurd. I joined the call anyway, not as a participant, just quietly watching from a window seat in the shared workspace while he dialed in from a conference room. He pulled up my interface, my feature set, even my sample data. He demoed it with this smug little grin like he'd just cracked the Da Vinci Code. The VP nodded, intrigued, clearly impressed, and then he clicked launch. That's when everything unraveled. The screen froze. Devin's grin faltered. He clicked again. Nothing. He rebooted the demo server. Error. The logs rolled like a slot machine stuck on jackpot. He started to panic. Said it worked fine this morning. Blamed a merge conflict. Blamed bad WIFI. Blamed the cloud for some reason. I just watched, sipping my coffee like it was popcorn. That evening, the VP came to my desk and said, "Hey, you ever see that bug Devin ran into? I was told you two were working on the same feature set." I smiled. I haven't seen anything like that, but I'd be happy to show you my version. I've got it working on production already. 20 minutes later, I was screen sharing with 3 department heads, walking them through my app. It ran flawlessly. Clean interface, no crashes, no mystery bugs. That same night, Devon was locked out of our internal tools. He was fired the next morning for intellectual dishonesty and breach of internal trust. And I got promoted. I didn't even have to push for it, they offered. Said they needed someone they could count on to deliver high-stakes tools without drama or deceit. You almost have to admire the ego it takes to plagiarize someone else's work and parade it around like it's yours, without even checking the code.asterisk. He literally wrote the script for his own downfall. All I did was press play. But what if it's your own partner sabotaging you? This next story still haunts me. I used to think I had really bad luck with jobs. Like, comically bad. I'd get hired, things would go well for a few weeks, sometimes even a couple months. And then, out of nowhere, it would start. Weird vibes from management, sudden performance reviews, cold shoulders from coworkers. Then a call to HR. Then the slow fade. And before I knew it, I'd be sitting in my car with a box of my stuff, wondering what I did wrong. The first couple of times, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't adapting well. Maybe I wasn't a cultural fit. It happens. But after the fourth time, and I mean 4 times in a row, I started thinking, okay, something's up. It didn't click all at once. It was little things. An old boss casually mentioning a strange review on Yelp. A coworker asking why my girlfriend was mad at the office manager. One day, a recruiter even pulled me aside and asked, "Hey, did you really call your last supervisor a narcissistic hack in a Glassdoor review?" I didn't, obviously, but someone did. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I was dating Ashley at the time. We'd been together for almost a year. She was charming, funny, a little intense sometimes, but I chalked that up to passion. She had her own job, worked from home, seemed supportive when I lost gigs, said all the right things, but then came the notification. We were sitting on the couch watching something forgettable when her phone buzzed. She picked it up, went pale, and immediately turned the screen away from me. But I caught the preview. "Your recent review on Local Business Tracker has received a reply." That was weird. She never mentioned leaving reviews, and I definitely hadn't heard of that site. So I let it go for 10 minutes. Then I went to the kitchen and Googled that site, searched my most recent job. Boom. There it was. A 1-star review posted a week after I started. It called the company toxic, said the leadership was incompetent, and name-dropped the exact manager who had turned on me right before I got let go. The username? Ash Real Talk. Oh. Okay. I confronted her. She denied it. Said I was being paranoid and that anyone could have that username. So I waited. That night, while she was in the shower, I checked her phone. She'd never changed the passcode, and what I found wasn't just a review. It was a spreadsheet titled, I kid you not, Reputation Management. My name. Inside, every job I'd had in the past 2 years. Company names, manager names, phone numbers, internal employee gossip, even timestamps of when she called HR to report his attitude. There were color-coded sections labeled confirmed fired, still active threat, and this one sent me into orbit, potential for rehire equals sabotage if yes. She was tracking my entire career like it was a military op. And that wasn't even the worst part. There were call logs, fake Yelp accounts, IP addresses used to post fake screenshots of abusive DMs from me, sent to my coworkers, multiple fake emails posing as other employees, and in one entry she even wrote, "Consider anonymous tip to company about substance use. Believable? I don't drink. I've never touched drugs," but she was workshopping lies to destroy my credibility just in case I ever got too successful. This is where patience finally snapped. I took photos of everything. Then I called my brother, who's a lawyer. He walked me through what counted as defamation, harassment, and, yes, employment interference. We started documenting the trail. Every call, every review, every fake email that could be traced back to her. Then I moved out. Didn't say a word. Just waited until she went to the grocery store, packed a bag, and ghosted. 2 days later, she showed up at my work. Security had to walk her out. She screamed that I was abandoning her without closure, and that she sacrificed everything for me. I guess stalking my LinkedIn and impersonating HR reps was just part of that noble sacrifice. Then came the real fallout. I emailed the spreadsheet and with documentation to every employer she had ever sabotaged. Some of them replied with stunned apologies. One even offered to re-interview me. Another sent back a copy of their internal investigation notes, which matched up exactly with one of the entries in her doc. I also filed a police report, and while it didn't go far criminally, most of it was too tricky to pin down legally. It was enough to get a restraining order, a real one, with her name on it. She tried to spin the narrative on social media, claimed I was the toxic one, said I stole her laptop and fabricated files to smear her, but the internet wasn't buying it because I posted screenshots, not petty rants, receipts, and suddenly, people who'd been charmed by her quirks started backing away. You almost have to respect the level of self-sabotage. She built this twisted little empire of lies to keep me close, and ended up torching her own credibility in the process. I'm in a much better place now. New job, better boundaries, a deep appreciation for two-factor authentication and incognito mode. But every now and then, I still think about that spreadsheet. How calculated it all was. How she never once looked like the kind of person who'd destroy someone's life in a Google sheet. But I guess love really is blind, especially when you don't check the formulas. Sometimes revenge is deserved, like when a bride finds out her cousin stole her wedding dress. The last time I saw my sister before everything went sideways, she was screaming at me in a hospital waiting room, over a vending machine. No, seriously. It was one of those dumb sibling arguments that starts over Cheetos and ends in nuclear war. That was 4 years ago. After that, total radio silence, not a text, not a Christmas card, nothing. So when I found out she'd miraculously reconnected with our grandfather, the same grandfather who raised me like a second dad, I was confused and then suspicious, because this wasn't just some heartfelt family reunion. It was strategic. Grandpa had been sick for a while. He was sharp until the very end, but his body was giving out. He was also, let's say, traditional. He'd always wanted the family name to carry on. I'm child-free, proudly. But my sister, she saw an angle. Cue the tearful announcement, she was pregnant, with the first great-grandchild. Grandpa was over the moon. She started visiting him weekly, brought him herbal tea, made scrapbooks, told him how she wanted to raise her baby, with the same values he taught us. It worked, because 2 months before he passed, he rewrote the will. I wasn't there when he did it. I didn't even know it happened until the reading. I walked into the lawyer's office expecting the usual, a few sentimental heirlooms, maybe some savings split between us. Instead, I got a generic condolence. She got everything. The house, the savings, the antique coin collection he'd promised me when I was 13. She even got his dog, my childhood dog's puppy, all because she said she was building a future for the next generation. And Grandpa, bless his heart, believed her. To her credit, she played the role beautifully. She wore flowing dresses, complained about morning sickness, touched her stomach every 10 minutes like she was posing for a catalog. She even threw a gender reveal brunch that no one was invited to, but she talked about it non-stop. But then came the breaking point. At Thanksgiving, 2 months after Grandpa's funeral, she showed up in heels, drank wine, and ate a plate of sushi. No bump, no glow, no tired eyes, just full glam and zero signs of pregnancy. And that's when my cousin, who was also her old college roommate, pulled me aside. She said, "Hey, you know she's not actually pregnant, right?" Cue the record scratch. I blinked. "What do you mean?" She told me months ago. Said it was the only way to make sure he didn't give everything to you. She figured she could fake it long enough to get the will changed. She even had screenshots, a whole thread of texts where my sister joked about wearing the world's comfiest prosthetic bump and Googling how to lie to an old man without going to jail. It wasn't just fraud. It was strategic emotional theft. This is where patience finally snapped. I didn't confront her immediately. I went lawyer first. My attorney almost choked on his coffee when he saw the messages. Apparently, faking a pregnancy to influence a dying man's will is more than just unethical, it's legally dicey, especially when paired with medical deception and inheritance manipulation. We filed a petition to contest the will, presented the messages, got statements from family who noticed the suspicious timing, even subpoenaed her OBGYN records, which were, surprise, non-existent. But that wasn't even the worst part. During court, she doubled down, claimed she'd had a late miscarriage, cried on command, and tried to paint me as bitter and jealous. And then the judge asked, "Do you have any medical documentation of the pregnancy or the miscarriage?" She blinked, fumbled, said her clinic closed. The judge raised an eyebrow. And then my cousin handed over a voice recording. One my sister didn't know she had. In it, my sister laughing over drinks, saying, "Honestly, I thought I'd just rent a baby bump and call it a day. He bought it so fast. Men are so gullible, that was it. The will was overturned. Grandpa's original will, the one made 2 years earlier, was reinstated. Everything was split between us equally. The dog came home with me. As for my sister, it started with a drone. Not the casual hobbyist kind. This one was sleek, black, and quiet. It hovered outside my second-floor window one night while I was brushing my teeth, just floating, watching. At first, I thought it was a random teenager messing around. I waved. It didn't leave. The next night, same thing. Now, I'm not paranoid by default, but 3 nights in a row, at the same time, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. It got worse. I'd walk out back to water the garden, and the next day, my neighbor, let's call him Darren, would casually mention what shirt I was wearing, or how I should really get that hose replaced. Except the hose wasn't visible from his yard. At all. I started checking for cameras, and that's when I found the first one, tucked in a bush near the back fence. It was disguised as one of those fake rocks you buy at garden centers, but this thing had a blinking LED behind the mesh. I cracked it open and yep, full-on Wi-Fi enabled motion-triggered camera with live stream capability. And the best part, it wasn't mine. This guy had planted surveillance gear on my property. Probably assumed I'd never notice because it blended in, but now I was on high alert. So I did what any nerdy tech guy would do. I built a signal sniffer. Basically, it's a Raspberry Pi rig that can track nearby Wi-Fi and Bluetooth devices, log their signal strength, and, with a bit of triangulation, figure out where they're coming from or going to. I spent a few days mapping out the data. Turns out there weren't just 1 or 2 suspicious connections. There were 7, all bouncing back to Darren's house. That's when everything unraveled. I waited until a Saturday morning when he left for golf. Then I walked over to his side yard and peeked through the cracked window of his garage. There, glowing like something out of a villain's lair, was a wall of monitors. Seriously, a wall. It looked like a baby's first NSA control center. At least 5 screens, all showing different angles of various houses in the neighborhood. My backyard, the Johnsons' pool, the Rodriguez's front porch, even old Mrs. Keller's kitchen. I felt sick. This wasn't a one-time, creepy drone thing. This was a long-term operation. And the part that still haunts me? He labeled the feeds. Labeled them. Mine said 2B-midnight-window, like he was cataloging us like wildlife. This guy wasn't just nosy, he was archiving people's lives. So I took pictures, documented everything. Backed up the signal logs, the footage from his bush cam, even the serial number on the device. Then I called the police. They didn't brush it off, not with that much evidence. The raid happened 2 days later. I watched from across the street with a mug of coffee as 3 unmarked cars pulled up. They knocked, entered, and within minutes Darren was in cuffs on his own lawn. His face, pale, like all the blood had evacuated the building. The cops pulled out hard drives, labeled ones. Backyard 2022. Pool views, living RM Zoom. It wasn't just creepy, it was illegal. And then came the breaking point. The local news picked it up. Turns out Darren had been spying on neighbors for over 3 years. Had footage of everything from late-night parties to people arguing in their living rooms. Even a recording of a neighbor's kid's birthday party, taken through a privacy fence. He wasn't just a creep. He was a data hoarder with delusions of surveillance power. The reporters interviewed neighbors, blurred faces, talked about suburban paranoia meets technology. But the best part, I gave them the footage he took of me and turned it into the story that ruined him. You almost have to admire the irony. He spent years trying to expose everyone else's lives and ended up being the most exposed man in the county. Charges? Oh yeah, felony wiretapping, unlawful surveillance, stalking. The works. Last I heard, he took a plea deal. Registered offender, banned from owning drone tech, and legally required to notify any future neighbors of his digital misconduct, which is a phrase I hope haunts him for life. And me? I installed privacy film on my windows, motion lights, the whole shebang, but the best revenge wasn't tech. It was letting his own footage drag him into the spotlight he worked so hard to avoid. This feels like a deleted scene from a tech horror show, but with better coffee. And speaking of surveillance, let's talk about the guy who installed spyware on his girlfriend's phone and accidentally exposed his own affair. She was disowned. Not just by me, by everyone. Cousins, aunts, even her own mother stopped talking to her. She became a cautionary tale at church. Someone told me she moved states to start fresh, which I'm pretty sure is code for hide from public shame. And look, I didn't do it for the money. I did it because Grandpa deserved better. He wasn't perfect, but he loved us, trusted us. And she turned that into a strategy. You almost have to admire the audacity. Faking a whole child just to rob your own family. That's not just betrayal, that's performance art. But if you think that's manipulative, wait until you hear what happened when a guy found out his neighbor was spying on him with drones. It started with a weird lag on my phone, just a slight delay, apps glitching, my keyboard freezing, and sometimes my camera would flicker like it wanted to open on its own. I figured it was just the usual update mess, but then I noticed something worse. My texts were being read before I opened them. At first I thought I was just being paranoid. You know when you get that gut feeling something's off but you don't have proof yet? That was me. Until one night I caught a glimpse of a notification from a background app I never installed. Just flashing for a split second. Log uploaded. That's when it clicked. He put spyware on my phone, and he is my boyfriend, Tyler. We'd been together just under a year. Things had always been a little too intense. The whole just trying to protect you type of vibe, which sounds sweet until you realize it's code for controlling behavior. He'd get weirdly specific about conversations I'd had, knew when I was online, acted like my Google Maps history was just something he guessed. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because if he was dumb enough to install spyware, I wanted to see what else he was hiding, so I played dumb. I kept my habits normal, acted like nothing had changed, but secretly I started investigating the spyware itself. Found out it was a commercial tracking app disguised as a phone security booster, real, subtle. I managed to access the control panel through a back door, and that's where I found the logs. Every message, every call, every photo, all getting uploaded automatically. And not just from me, from him too. That's when everything unraveled, because inside those logs were texts between him and someone named Melissa. Not just texts, screenshots, photos, hotel confirmations, GPS timestamps, some of them dated during our anniversary weekend, when he told me he was on a work retreat. Melissa wasn't just some fling. She was a married coworker, and based on their messages, they'd been doing this for months. But that wasn't even the worst part. Tyler had been talking about me in those messages, mocking me, calling me too boring to notice, saying things like, she's clueless. I literally read her texts while she's in the shower. So that's when I decided I wasn't just going to break up with him. I was going to set the house on fire, metaphorically. I created a new folder, titled it For Melissa's Husband. I took every incriminating screenshot, the hotel bookings, the selfies, the gross graphic texts, the ones where Tyler said he wanted Melissa to leave her loser husband already. Then I did a little social media stalking, found Melissa's husband, sent him the entire folder with a polite message. Thought you deserved to see this. I didn't know she was married. I'm sorry, but I didn't stop there. I also found out where Tyler worked, and more importantly, that Melissa reported to him. Yep, boss-employee relationship, HR violation central. So I sent a separate anonymous tip to their company's ethics line, complete with time-stamped evidence, screenshots of messages referencing keeping this on the down low, and one very unfortunate pic of them in a company vehicle, mid-makeout. Session, watermarked and everything. And then I waited. 3 days later, Tyler showed up at my apartment acting like everything was normal. I smiled, played along, asked if he wanted dinner. Meanwhile, I watched his phone blow up. The first message was from Melissa. Did you send those screenshots to Mike? Then came another. HR wants to talk. And then, don't come near me again. His face? Glorious. like a man watching the floor cave in beneath him. I finally asked, sweet as can be, "Hey, did you ever fix that app on my phone?" He blinked. "What app?" "You know," I said, tilting my head, "the one you installed so you could protect me," because I found the logs. "And I guess they protected me a little too well." He turned white, tried to deny it, then tried to apologize. Then tried to blame Melissa. Said she made him do it, like he wasn't the one who went full stalker meets tech bro and played spy on his own girlfriend. I told him to leave, blocked him on everything. He lost Melissa, lost his job, because HR did not play around once the screenshots came out. And from what I hear, he also lost the lease on his apartment because it was part of a company housing deal. Sometimes karma shows up with a clipboard and a chain of emails. You almost have to admire the efficiency. But if you think that's messy, the next one is worse, because it starts with an accidental wedding invitation and ends with a DNA test. It was supposed to be the best day of my life, not a scene out of some cursed soap opera. The ceremony had just started. I was standing at the altar, waiting for my bride, surrounded by friends, family, and the kind of awkward coworkers who never dress appropriately for anything. Everything felt surreal. The string quartet, the soft buzz of whispers, the breeze through the trees. And then, her voice cut through it all like a car alarm in a church. "Daniel, don't do this." Heads turned, my blood ran cold. Standing at the edge of the aisle was my ex, Tessa. Visibly drunk, hair frazzled, red dress, stilettos, sunglasses on, like she was trying to cosplay a soap villain and failing spectacularly. She stumbled forward, slurring about how we were meant to be together, shouting that this wedding was a mistake, that I still belonged to her. Guests froze. My bride hadn't even walked down the aisle yet. I just stood there, completely stunned, trying to remember how breathing worked. That's when things went from cringe to catastrophic. My mother stood up and told Tessa to leave. Bridesmaids closed in like a protective wall. But before she could be escorted out, she screamed one more thing. "You told me you were adopted. That doesn't mean we aren't soulmates." A hush fell. Not the good kind. My best man, Luke, a detail-oriented menace with a weird addiction to genealogy, turned around slowly and asked, "Wait, what's her last name?" She yelled it, loudly, proudly, and then added, "Why? Are you gonna Google me too?" Luke paled. Then he pulled out his phone and whispered something to my cousin. And my cousin whispered it to my mom. And my mom turned to me, eyes wide. That's when Luke looked back at me and said 5 words I'll never forget. "Dude, I think she's your sister." Now, in my defense, I was adopted. At birth. Closed adoption. All I ever had was a name, D. Renner, my birth mother's last name. No other records, no contact, nothing. I knew there was a possibility of biological relatives out there, but I'd never dug into it. I'd always figured I'd leave that door shut. Guess Tessa kicked it open with a steel-toed boot. After the most awkward wedding delay in recorded history, I pulled Luke aside. He showed me a 23andMe screenshot. The same name, same birth county, same biological mother. And I remembered something Tessa had said when we were dating, that her mom had to give up a baby before she met her dad. That baby was me. So to recap, my ex crashed my wedding screaming that she wanted me back, only for us to find out she's actually my half-sister. And yeah, we'd dated. For almost 4 months. Nothing serious, but enough to make me want to bleach my DNA. My bride, bless her, was shockingly calm. She said, "You didn't know. This is not your fault." Then she went inside, took off her heels, poured a glass of champagne and said, "This wedding is on pause, but not cancelled. You've got a family emergency. Handle it." So I did. The next day, I messaged Tessa and told her we needed to talk. Sober. She responded with a string of emojis and a passive-aggressive TikTok, but eventually agreed. We met at a local cafe. No yelling, no drama. Just me showing her the proof, birth records, DNA matches, and a full breakdown of our family tree, courtesy of Luke, who now thinks he's the Sherlock Holmes of Ancestry.com. At first she denied it, then she cried. Then she blamed me for not telling her. Yeah, because I knew my ex was my sister. Sure. Then came the breaking point. She told everyone, but not the truth. She spun the story as the groom dumped her after finding out she was adopted, leaving out the whole incest twist. But small towns are small towns. The truth got out. And when it did, it went nuclear. She lost friends. Her co-workers distanced themselves. Her own parents were horrified. Turns out her mother had never told anyone about me, not even her husband. The secret child she gave up, suddenly front-page gossip, and Tessa, ground zero. One of her friends leaked screenshots of her meltdown on Reddit. A wedding guest posted a blurred TikTok with the caption, "That moment when the ex turns out to be your actual ex and your sister." It got millions of views. People in town started calling her stepsis, which, yeah, not great. But I can't say she didn't set herself up for it. Her job, gone. Her social life, ghost town, her dating life, probably in witness protection. Meanwhile, me and my bride, we took a break, regrouped, and had a small private ceremony later. No guests, no drama. Just the two of us, a beach and a firm no-contact rule with anyone who'd ever yelled down the aisle at a wedding. You almost have to admire the precision with which Tessa destroyed her own life. Like she had a bingo card of bad decisions and decided to black out the whole thing in one night. That story spiraled fast, but not as fast as the guy who got kicked out of his own company by the intern he mentored. When I first met Jason, the intern, I actually liked the guy. He was fresh out of college, wore those aggressively ironed button-downs, and acted like every task was a high-stakes mission. He called me sir for the first week until I told him to knock it off. I'd been working at that company for 8 years. Software development team lead. I knew the back-end systems like the layout of my own apartment, and I genuinely enjoyed mentoring new hires, especially ones who asked questions and seemed eager to learn. Jason? Oh, he was eager, all right. But it wasn't just about learning. At first, it was little things. He'd hang around late volunteering for projects nobody asked him to touch. I figured he was just trying to make a good impression. Then he started casually name-dropping people from upper management during our team meetings. Like, well, Chad in strategy thinks we should automate that flow. Or I was grabbing coffee with Karen from legal and she mentioned the dude was networking like his life depended on it. But whatever, that's how you climb. What I didn't realize, he wasn't just climbing. He was climbing over me, because while I was reviewing his code and helping him fix his merge conflicts, he was privately telling our VP that I was stuck in legacy thinking and resistant to innovation. I only found out after everything exploded. But yeah, he'd been slowly positioning himself as the young, hungry replacement. And I guess it worked. Then came the restructure. It was positioned as a realignment for growth. I was off-boarded with the usual HR buzzwords and a 2-month severance package. No warning, just a quick meeting, a signed NDA, and a gentle reminder to leave my keycard at the front desk. At the time, I didn't even know Jason had anything to do with it. I just thought I'd been replaced by cheaper labor or caught in a random budget cut. But a week later, a former coworker texted me, "You're not gonna believe who's got your desk." It was Jason. Not just promoted, installed in my old role. He even posted on LinkedIn, bragging about overcoming legacy bottlenecks and leading the next chapter in digital transformation. The guy quoted himself, "You almost have to respect the delusion." That's when I started connecting the dots. I reached out to a couple of old teammates, and one of them quietly shared a Slack transcript Jason had forgotten to delete. It was damning. Subtle digs at my leadership, comments implying I wasn't keeping up, and a direct message where he told the VP that the team would be faster if I wasn't holding them back. Imagine training the guy who scripts your own firing. But that wasn't even the worst part. I later found out he reused one of my full-stack architecture proposals, one I'd written but hadn't submitted yet, and pitched it to the board as his idea. Word for word. He slapped his name on it, presented it as something he'd been prototyping, and got praised for thinking outside the box. This was the breaking point. I could have gone scorched earth, sure, reported him to HR, started a whisper campaign. But instead, I played the long game. I used my severance to take a break, cleared my head, traveled. Then I reached out to a couple of old colleagues, the kind with startup dreams and rich uncles. We built a prototype for a new SaaS product in the same space as my old company. Leaner, smarter, faster. No legacy debt, no Jason. We pitched it around, got seed funding, then Series A. 18 months later, we weren't just making money. We were eating their market share alive. Our client base started overlapping. Their customers were switching to us. We didn't even advertise, word spread organically. And just when they thought it was a coincidence, we made an offer to buy them out. That company, my former company, accepted, quietly, probably to save face. The founders got golden parachutes, the VPs shuffled off to other startups. And Jason? Yeah, he was still there, still posting on LinkedIn, still doing podcasts about millennial leadership and agile culture. He even had the nerve to say, "My goal is to build workplaces that don't just tolerate innovation, they demand it." I walked into my old office on the first day of transition. Same layout, same crappy carpet, but now it was mine. Jason saw me and turned ghost white. I called him into a meeting. No one else, just us. Sat across from him, looked him right in the eye, and I said, "So, you're the guy who streamlines inefficiencies, right?" He started babbling about synergy and forward momentum. I cut him off. "You're fired." No drama, no yelling, just clean corporate karma. And yes, I did send him a nice LinkedIn endorsement. Great at networking, terrible at loyalty. This feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom. Except in this one, the intern doesn't get a redemption arc. He gets a severance package and a LinkedIn post that quietly disappears 2 weeks later. Betrayal in the office is brutal, but betrayal in your own family, that hits different, especially when it comes with a fake funeral. The moment I heard about my Uncle Dave's tragic passing overseas, something in me just didn't click. It wasn't grief. I'll be real, Dave and I were never close. He was that weird, slippery uncle everyone tolerates at holidays. The kind who always had a new scheme, a mysterious girlfriend who never showed up, and a car that was somehow always in the shop. We hadn't spoken in years, and honestly, most of the family didn't even know where he lived anymore. So when my mom called crying and saying, "Dave's gone," I gave her the obligatory shocked silence. But in my head, I immediately thought, nah, that guy's not dead. He's way too narcissistic to die off camera. She told me he died while traveling in Southeast Asia. No specific country, no hospital name, no paperwork. Just an accident. Supposedly, he fell during a hike and didn't make it back. His travel companion, who no one had ever met, arranged for cremation due to local regulations. Sketchy doesn't even begin to cover it, but the family bought it. Everyone cried, everyone wore black. Plans were made for a memorial the following weekend. I was expected to put together a slideshow, and that's when things really started to spiral. I wasn't trying to expose anything. I genuinely opened my laptop to make a basic slideshow. You know, a few baby photos, the classic grainy 70s pictures where everyone looks sunburned and confused. But when I went looking for more recent pics, I noticed something strange. His Facebook profile, still active. That's not the weird part. Some people forget to delete them. But there were new likes, posts from mutuals tagging him. One even said, "Had a blast last night, Dave," after his supposed date of death. So, naturally, I clicked on it. It was a group photo from a sports bar, posted by one of his old drinking buddies. In the back, blurry but unmistakable, was Uncle Dave, in a Hawaiian shirt, drinking a beer, looking very much not dead. And that wasn't even the worst part. I messaged the guy who posted it, asked if he knew Dave had passed. His response? "What are you talking about?" I literally just saw him. He said he was going off the grid for a while. That's when everything unraveled. I did some digging, reached out to an old friend of Dave's who used to help him with business stuff. Turned out Dave had taken out 2 life insurance policies over the past 3 years, one through a sketchy online broker and another through a legit national firm. He'd listed some random woman as the beneficiary on one and my aunt on the other. I started printing screenshots, email headers, policy documents, the sports bar photo. I even pulled metadata from the photo, time-stamped 4 days after his death. This wasn't just a scam, it was a sloppy one. The memorial was held at a rented hall, the kind that tries to look like a church but still smells like microwaved quiche. The family showed up in black, tears already flowing, and my aunt gave this shaky speech about how Dave was a complex soul who loved life. I almost snorted. Then came the slideshow portion, and I stood up. But instead of baby pictures and old camp photos, I clicked through a new presentation. Slide 1, the Facebook photo. Slide 2, a zoomed-in shot of Dave holding a beer. Slide 3, An insurance policy with the date of payout requested. Slide 4. A time-stamped email from davertravelguy@gmail.com, mailed to davertravelguy@gmail.com, asking about payout logistics. The room went dead silent, and then chaos. My aunt gasped so hard she choked on her own breath. My cousin said, "What the hell is this?" My mom just whispered, "Oh my God, I knew it." But the real showstopper? The man in the back, the insurance agent, standing up slowly, pulling out his phone and walking out of the room. Turns out my uncle hadn't just faked his death. He'd tried to collect while attending his own memorial via burner Facebook accounts and proxies. You'd think someone smart enough to plan insurance fraud would also know not to tag themselves in bar photos while supposedly cremated. You almost have to admire the idiocy. Later that night, I got a call from the insurance agent. He thanked me for the evidence drop and let me know Dave had been found the next day, hiding out in a motel one town over, using a fake name. They'd traced the IP address from his emails. The arrest wasn't quiet. He was taken into custody while trying to book a Greyhound under the name Dan Rave. Real original Dave. The fallout? Nuclear. He's facing multiple counts of insurance fraud, falsifying documents, and attempted wire fraud. He might have gotten away with it too, if it wasn't for the world's most predictable mistake, ego and Facebook. Now, he's not just estranged, he's completely cut off. Nobody visits, nobody writes. My aunt blocked his number. My mum still can't believe it. And me, I've been unofficially banned from creating family slideshows. This is where patience finally snapped, and PowerPoint turned into a felony sting. Speaking of unbelievable lies, here's what happened when a woman faked being a lawyer. For 2 entire years. The first time I met my new boss, I thought she was intense. She had this confident energy, like someone who thrived on caffeine and courtroom drama. Always wore sharp blazers, dropped legal jargon like confetti, and carried herself like she was one cross-examination away from a Netflix docuseries. She introduced herself as Marla Evans Esquire and insisted everyone call her counselor. Not Marla, not Miss Evans, counselor. That should have been my first red flag. But when you're a paralegal fresh out of your second burnout job, you don't question much. You just keep your head down, file the motions, and try not to screw up the formatting on subpoenas. For a while, everything seemed fine. She'd show up late to court, but somehow always talk her way out of it. Clients loved her. Juries ate up her closing arguments. She'd even won a few cases that should have been slam dunks for the other side. She was good. Maybe too good. And that's where the cracks started to show. I'd worked under real attorneys before. They all had a very specific rhythm, always referencing past cases, citing obscure codes from memory, obsessing over continuing education credits. Marla? Not so much. She'd get cagey when you asked for her bar number. Her diploma wasn't framed, it was just gone. And whenever anyone brought up their alma mater, she'd change the subject. Once I even heard her pronounce amicus curiae, like amicus curry. I winced so hard I pulled a muscle, but the breaking point came during a deposition. She completely misquoted a state statute, like, not even close. I flagged it after the meeting, gently, thinking maybe it was a fluke. She brushed me off with, "I don't need Google to practice law, sweetheart." Oh, so we're doing that now? Something felt off, so I started digging. I went to the state bar website and searched her name. Nothing. I tried variations, maiden names, hyphenations. Still nothing. Not licensed in our state. Not licensed anywhere. I asked HR for a copy of her credentials, citing a document update for our case files. They sent over a scan of her law degree, a blurry PDF that looked like it had been printed from a Word template. The font was Comic Sans. That's when everything unraveled. I called the university listed on the degree. They'd never heard of her. I checked the date on the diploma. It didn't even line up with the school's graduation calendar. One of the signatures was misspelled, and then I found the kicker, a Reddit post from her years ago, bragging about how she could have passed the bar if I tried, but it's all fake anyway. I took screenshots, all of it. Then I did what any responsible paralegal would do when their boss turns out to be legally fictional. I reported her to the state bar, the district attorney's office, and, just for good measure, the attorney she was currently up against in court. That last one? That's where the fireworks came from. She was mid-trial when it happened. Mid-cross-examination, actually. Giving one of her grandstanding speeches about upholding justice and the integrity of the court. Cue the DA walking into the courtroom with two investigators and a folder thicker than a Tolstoy novel. She tried to keep going, swore it was a coordinated smear campaign, even called me a jealous assistant who wanted her job. The judge didn't buy it. Neither did the opposing counsel, who straight up laughed. She was escorted out of the courtroom in cuffs, right in front of the jury. It was cinematic. And get this, during the arrest she shouted, "You can't disbar me. I'm not even a real lawyer. Talk about self-owning your way into a criminal record. You almost have to admire the audacity. The fallout was epic. Turns out she'd represented dozens of clients under false pretenses. And shockingly, she'd actually won some of their cases, which raised a whole new issue. Could those verdicts be overturned? Clients started suing. The law firm got blasted across local news. And me? I was subpoenaed as a witness more times than I can count. She's now facing multiple counts of fraud, impersonating a licensed professional, and perjury. The DA is pushing for the maximum sentence, not just because of the crime, but because she literally profited from it. For 2 years. The part that still gets me, the office threw her a birthday party 2 weeks before the arrest. We all chipped in for a cake shaped like a gavel. This feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom. After all was said and done, I got offered a job with the firm that reported her. Apparently, they were impressed with my attention to detail. I took the offer and got a raise. Marla, or whatever her real name is, still hasn't admitted how she pulled it off for so long. Fake credentials, phony references, online testimonials. She built a persona from scratch and somehow made it work, until it didn't. Then came the breaking point, and she broke with it. If you think impersonating a lawyer is bold, imagine impersonating your own twin. Yep, it gets weirder. It looks like I now have all the information and working examples to proceed. Let's expand Chapter 16 into a fully written story, as per your detailed instructions. The first red flag should have been the debt collector who called me about a $9,000 emergency vet bill. For a dog I didn't have, at a clinic I'd never been to, in a city I hadn't visited in 3 years. But the thing about being a twin is, sometimes weird coincidences just happen. We used to prank teachers in high school by switching clothes. We could unlock each other's phones with Face ID. We were close, or I thought we were. I laughed it off at first. I figured it was a billing mix-up, but then I got denied for a job I was perfect for. The recruiter said my references were concerned about my recent behavior. I pressed for more, and she reluctantly forwarded an email supposedly from me. Or rather, from the version of me who apparently screamed at a manager, ghosted a company laptop, and stole someone's lunch every day for 3 weeks. That's when I realized this wasn't a glitch. This was a hit job, and it was being done by the person who looked exactly like me. I confronted my sister, let's call her Elle, and her reaction was bizarre, no denial. Just this fake surprised, oh, I didn't think it would matter. Like she'd borrowed my sweater without asking. She tried to spin it like she was just trying to feel what it was like to be me. Like I was a test run, a dress rehearsal. She even laughed when I asked her to stop. "But you're doing fine," she said. "You always land on your feet." And here's where it gets absurd. I started digging into what Ella had actually done under my name, and it was way worse than a few job applications or a credit card swipe. She'd taken out a lease on an apartment as me, signed up for 3 different dating apps using my photos and her stories. She even had my college transcript printed out, and was using it as her credentials at networking events. I only found this out because someone tagged me in a photo from an event I didn't attend. I don't even know how long it had been going on. But the most insulting part? She used my identity to date my ex. A guy I'd dumped 2 years ago for being boring and emotionally unavailable. And here she was, playing house with him, introducing herself as me to people I used to know. I'll give her this. The commitment was Olympic level. But the stupidity, that was gold medal too. So I did what any reasonable person would do when their sister steals their life. I started documenting everything. Bank account changes, photos, chat logs, even that job rejection email. I filed a fraud alert on my credit report, froze my accounts, got a lawyer. But I didn't just want to stop her. I wanted to reverse the game, so I waited. Let her keep playing me for another 2 months, while I played her. I quietly assumed her credit card debt. Why? Because she'd built it under my name. But then I disputed it, and had it legally transferred back to the real cardholder, her. I used a public records request to pull up the lease she signed under my name and forwarded it to the landlord, along with her real name and photo. Lease terminated. Early termination fee sent to her new address. But that wasn't even the worst part, because once I had enough documented evidence, I took it one step further. I filed a civil suit against her, impersonating herself. No, seriously. Since she'd been using my name for months, I had a paper trail longer than a CVS receipt, showing that she was me. So I used her fake identity, my identity, to file a breach of contract claim over the apartment damages she caused and a defamation suit for the job she cost me. I even got the dog clinic involved, all while using her own name against her. She couldn't legally defend herself without admitting to multiple counts of identity theft. It was like beating someone at chess using their own pieces, because they were too cocky to notice you'd already taken their king. She tried to backpedal, claimed it was a social experiment, said she was just acting out. She even tried to drag our parents into it, but by then I had already sat them down and showed them everything. They were horrified, and then came the breaking point. Her boyfriend, aka my ex, dumped her when he realized he'd been dating someone pretending to be someone else. I liked her because she was you, he admitted. I thought you'd changed. Which you, but also poetic justice, the final nail. Her attempt to sue me for emotional distress under the name L. The same name she'd been actively pretending didn't exist while stealing mine. The court dismissed it in less than 10 minutes. Her lawyer visibly cringed when the judge asked, "Are you alleging that the plaintiff, who is you, wronged you by being you?" This feels like a deleted scene from a sitcom, like the kind where someone tries to scam a hotel by pretending to be their own evil twin. She moved out of state shortly after. Last I heard, she was couch surfing with someone she used to bully in high school. Kind of a full circle moment. And me? I got the job, the good one. The one I lost because of her sabotage. They kept my name on file and circled back when the role reopened. I told them everything. The HR rep blinked twice and said, "That explains so much." Honestly, this whole thing taught me two things. One, always lock down your online presence. Seriously. Passwords, two-factor, all of it. And two, if your twin sister ever starts borrowing your life, start keeping receipts. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't even intentional. It's just letting someone implode under the weight of their own lies. Speaking of implosions, here's what happened when a guy got revenge on a cheating ex. With help from a pet parrot, she used to call me useless when she thought I couldn't hear her. Like, full-blown muttering insults while brushing her teeth, whispering behind my back as I cooked dinner. Passive-aggressive sighs turned into actual verbal abuse, all done just low enough that she could deny it if I ever brought it up. And for a while, I believed I was imagining it. You know that gaslighting that creeps in when someone treats you like garbage but wraps it in sarcasm and a cute Instagram post afterward? Yeah, that was my life. Her name was Courtney, and for about a year she lived in my apartment rent-free. Literally and figuratively. Now, I'm not some helpless pushover. I just didn't want to admit the relationship was crumbling. I was the kind of guy who believed in fixing what's broken. But, in hindsight, this wasn't a relationship. It was a long, slow roast session where I was the punchline. And the wildest part? It was my parrot who finally exposed her. Yep, my African grey parrot, Mango. Sweetest bird alive and apparently a better listener than I ever realized. It started a few months after she moved out. I'd finally ended things after finding some sketchy DMs on her iPad. Left unlocked, by the way. Amateur move. She tried to play it off, claiming it was just jokes with a coworker named Nate. Spoiler, it was not jokes. Anyway, one night I'm sitting on the couch eating leftover tacos and watching Mango do his usual routine. Whistling, clicking, mimicking my phone alarm. But then I heard him say something new. He said in a tone that was way too familiar, "Nate's better in bed. Don't tell loser boy I blinked." Like, did he just say that? I paused the TV and looked at him. He tilted his head and repeated it again. Same voice, same rhythm, same little scoff at the end. I nearly dropped my taco. At first I thought I was hallucinating, but Mango wasn't done. Over the next few days, he started casually dropping a few more phrases into the mix. Stuff like, greater than, he won't even notice. He's too dumb, greater than delete the text before bed. Greater than you're touching me with those gross hands again. Which in Parrot translation was basically an audio diary of her private commentary while I wasn't around. Or worse, while I was. I don't know if she used to vent out loud around the apartment or just talk trash while I was in the shower, but Mango had been recording it all. And now, he was dropping the mixtape. This is where patience finally snapped. I started recording him. Every time he said something sus, I hit record on my phone. It wasn't just one or two things, it was dozens of phrases. Some were hilarious, some were straight up brutal. But one in particular made everything click, greater than Nate's married LOL. There it was, the cherry on the betrayal sundae. So I did what any normal, rational adult would do in 2025. I made a TikTok. No face, just Mango perched on his little swing, chirping out his greatest hits. I added subtitles, a bit of background music, and posted it with the caption, greater than when your parrot exposes your toxic ex, better than therapy ever could parrot hashtag, parrot girl, hashtag cheetah soft dick talk. I went to sleep thinking maybe 5 people would see it. By morning it had 1 million views, people were obsessed. I woke up to 300 comments, stuff like, greater than this parrot deserves an Oscar. Greater than, I don't know who Courtney is, but I hope she's crying. Greater than, imagine getting exposed by your ex's bird. I thought that would be the end of it. Some viral laughs. Maybe a few thousand new followers, but then Mango dropped a new line. Greater than, you promised you'd leave your wife. Yep. Apparently Mango had everything. So I posted a follow-up. This time with a bleeped name and a blurred out screenshot of her texts I'd saved. Just enough for someone to piece it together. That's when someone tagged Nate. Let me tell you, the moment your video gets duetted by a guy who says, hey, that's my wife's coworker, you know it's about to go nuclear. And it did. Nate messaged me directly, said he'd been suspicious for a while but never had proof. I sent him a Dropbox link with Mango's greatest hits. He didn't even ask for more details. Just replied, greater than, I'll take it from here. I didn't ask what he did. I didn't need to. Because the next day, Courtney blew up my phone. She texted, called, left voicemails, even sent me a video message crying and saying I was ruining her life. But here's the kicker. She never denied anything. She just said, why would you humiliate me like this? And it was just a fling. And you didn't have to make it public. Oh, so now she wants privacy? This feels like the dramatic third act of a reality show no one meant to film. And yeah, she lost both guys. Nate dumped her. His wife found out. Even her work found the TikToks. Turns out her boss was tagged by someone in the comments. One of the videos even played during a team Zoom, apparently. She's now known as Parrot Girl in every corner of social media. Someone even made a remix of Mango's lines and set it to lo-fi beats. It's honestly kind of fire. I didn't intend to go viral. I really didn't. But something about justice being served by a bird that eats banana chips for fun, it just felt poetic. And you almost have to admire the audacity. Cheating, insulting, manipulating, all while living in my house, thinking no one would ever hear a thing. But someone did hear, and he repeated it, loudly, to the internet. Mango now has his own Instagram account. He has 40,000 followers and counting. I made him a tiny gold microphone for fun. He mostly just screams into it now, kind of like an unhinged talk show host. Fitting. Courtney? Last I checked, she deleted all her socials. Probably somewhere trying to lay low. But good luck escaping a talking bird who knows everything. And speaking of poetic customer service revenge, wait until you hear what happened when a woman used a return policy to bankrupt her ex's entire scam business. It was just supposed to be another quiet Tuesday morning shift. I worked at this upscale members-only retail chain. Think overpriced organic groceries, curated skincare, and enough reclaimed wood decor to stage a lifestyle influencer's dream kitchen. My job? Register duty and customer service. Pretty chill. Except for her. Let's call her Monica, because if you imagine the textbook definition of a Karen with a $400 haircut and a tiny designer dog in a fake purse, that was her. Monica was the kind of woman who weaponized lip gloss and passive aggression. She never made eye contact with staff unless she was asking for a manager. And on this day, she decided I was the target of her self-appointed justice mission. It started with an avocado. She brought up 5, all tagged as organic. I rang them up. She glanced at the screen, paused dramatically, and said, "That price is wrong. I always get these for less." I double-checked. The tag was correct. I showed her the sign, politely explained the pricing, and even offered to check with produce if she wanted. Monica didn't want facts. Monica wanted blood. Greater than, "Are you calling me a liar?" I started to respond, but she cut me off, and it escalated fast. She leaned over the counter, finger wagging, voice rising. In the middle of the store, she yelled, "You people are always trying to scam loyal customers. I spend thousands here. You should be ashamed, you people." Okay, this wasn't the first entitled meltdown I'd witnessed, but the volume, next level, and it didn't stop. She demanded my name, said she'd have me fired, told the person behind her that I was incompetent, and, this is real, said I looked too smug for someone who works retail. Like, "Ma'am, my badge literally says associate. Did you think I was undercover corporate?" This is where it gets absurd, because as she's tearing into me, her little dog poops on the floor, just right there, middle of the aisle, no leash, no bag. Monica looks at it, looks at me, and says, "Clean that up." Now, and that was my villain origin story. Now, what Monica didn't know, and probably wouldn't care if she did, is that we had cameras, lots of them, and what I knew because I'd seen it before was that screaming at an employee on tape is a corporate no-no, especially if you're a member. See, this store has a tiered membership system: basic, silver, gold, and platinum. Monica was platinum. That meant early access sales, priority reservations, all the perks. And she had just gone full banshee in front of 4 witnesses and a 4K security cam. So I smiled, calmly, blankly, the way you do when someone's digging their own grave with a diamond-studded spoon. I handed her the customer service number, told her I'd note the interaction, and watched her stomp out. Then I made a call of my own. I submitted the footage along with a typed statement, the witness names, and, here's the part that mattered, her membership ID. I'd caught it when she scanned in at the kiosk. Took 2 seconds to jot it down. Corporate doesn't always act quickly. But this time, they did. 3 days later, we got the internal email. Monica's account had been reviewed, flagged for abusive conduct, and revoked. Her membership was terminated due to repeated violations of member conduct policy. She was banned, and I figured that would be the end. She'd probably scream at another assistant somewhere else, maybe in a yoga studio. But then something weird happened. A week later, I got an internal notice about discounted transfers on terminated accounts. It's a rare thing the store does. When a premium membership is revoked, they sometimes reassign it at a lower rate for retention. The idea is to keep the quota filled. Usually, it's a quiet process. But guess who was at the top of the available list? Yep, Monica's Platinum membership. Still active, but transferable. And guess who was eligible to claim it? This guy. So I did. I absolutely did. I paid the discounted rate, half off, took over the perks, and immediately booked everything. She used to hoard spa appointments, wine tastings, early bird sale reservations, all under her membership number, now in my name. Petty? Maybe. But also efficient. Because here's the kicker. The system still had her preferences saved, so I knew her usual appointments, her favorite samples, her personal shopper notes. I deleted all of it, replaced it with my own. 2 weeks later, she came in. Because of course she did. Probably to speak to someone at the top. Except now she wasn't a member. She didn't even get past the entrance. I watched her argue with the front staff, yelling about how there was a mistake, that she deserved her membership back, that her assistant must have cancelled it. The same assistant who, by the way, had called us earlier to complain she couldn't make reservations anymore. You almost have to admire the audacity, like being banned for abuse, then trying to bluff your way back in with fake assistant drama. That's elite Karen behavior. Eventually, she left, loudly, threatening legal action, again. But now, every time I walk in with my little scan card and get ushered into the fancy pre-sale lounge or skip the line for product holds, I smile. Because I know somewhere out there, Monica's still complaining that her account was stolen. She probably tells people it was identity theft or a clerical error. But really, it was just karma, with a barcode. And the best part? I've been using the perks for months now, saved hundreds, got the best appointment slots. even snagged a limited run espresso machine she'd been on the waitlist for. Let's just say her dog isn't the only one who left a mess in the store. If you've made it this far into the chaos, you're officially one of us now. Sweet dreams. And remember, the best revenge is patience with receipts.